Gremlin kit comes with these items. You get a fuselage, 2 tail sections, 2 left wings, 2 right wings, an accessory pack, a spar, and 2 rods to use as control rods. The motor mount is flat and will need forming. I'm doing this with a lighter here, but you can do it with any heat source such as a heat gun. Be careful not to get the area too hot or it will catch fire. All you'll want to do is heat it up, then grab the tips with a pair of needle nose pliers and bend over approximately 1/4 inch of material. When it cools, it will harden back up. Do both sides. What this will do is create a pinch point that'll make it easy to glue the motor mount in place. To attach the tail, we'll start by making 2 parallel lines on the back side of the fuselage. Then we'll cut these down about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch deep to make room for the booms that will make up the tail. The booms are made from the 12-inch spar. Simply measure the spar and cut it in half, that is at 6 inches with a pair of diagonals or wire cutters. Then add a little glue to the slot you just made and fit the spar in. I'm using hot glue here, but welder adhesive is probably a little bit better. Do this to both sides, and before the glue dries, make sure that the sticks are parallel to each other so the tail doesn't have any twist in it. For the tail itself, we'll scribe 2 marks on either side of the center for which the 2 tail pieces will fit into. You want to be very careful here not to cut all the way through the tail. The line should line up with your boom parts, and therefore make sure that the tail is actually straight. Just like the spars, these are simply glued in place and allowed to dry. Again, check to be sure that the tail is straight. The wings of the airplane are simply glued together. I'm using hot glue, but goop, shoe goo, or any of those gooey adhesives seems to work pretty well. When you press the wings together, there should be about 1 inch of dihedral. That is, that the tips should be approximately 1 inch higher than the root. The airplane vertical stabilizer is made from the other movable part, cut down to 6 inches. First, remove 3 inches off of the end, leaving you with a 3-inch and a 6-inch section. Then, overlay the cut-off section over top to make the contour by which you will glue this down to your tail assembly. You'll want to cut the back part at approximately a 45-degree angle to make room for the rudder to move when the elevator comes up. The next step is simply to glue this in place. Again, I'm using hot glue, but welders or goop works just as well, if not better. The control horns are a lightened version of the standard VAS control horns. Make a mark where you want the control horn to go through, then cut a small slice in the foam and push the control horn to make sure it goes through. Then add a little bit of glue to the control horn and slide one of the locking places over it. Again, add a little bit more glue to the control horn, then place it through the slit you've made in the tail assembly. Once installed, the final step is to install the other locking plate on the other side. Add a little bit of glue around the area to be sure it doesn't slide out, then press the locking plate down over the tooth and slide it backwards. The rudder control horn is mounted the same way as the elevator, just on the opposite side. Cut a slit in the rudder, slide the part through, add a little bit of glue, locking plate, glue, through the foam, then glue once again, and add the locking plate to the other side. You'll want the location on the rudder to be approximately 1 inch to 1.5 inches above the elevator assembly. The reason for this is to make sure the servo has ample clearance to move the control surface. Before we install the servos, we're going to have to make the control rods from the metal rods in the kit. Start by bending a small S-bend in the end of one of the rods, then place it through one of the control horns. Take a servo to the back of the tail and line the control horn up, and bend an S-bend on the other section at approximately where the control horn was. You will likely have excess metal remaining after you make the bend, so just cut that off. Then reinstall your control rod on both ends, both the control horn and the control surface on the servo, and then glue the servo in place. Try to keep the elevator and the rudder as straight as possible when doing this operation. The rudder is done the same as the elevator, just on the opposite side. It's just a control rod with 2 S-bends in it. and I use the control rod to line up where the servo should be. Now, you might have a little bit of play in either the rod or the servo itself, and that's okay. Don't worry about it too much. You can trim it out with your radio. Again, glue it in place, making sure the rudder is approximately straight. Installing the wings is done by simply gluing them in place. I'm starting with the lower wing here, but it really doesn't matter. You'll want to be sure the wings are square with the plane and square with each other. That is, that one wing isn't tilted to one side too much, or that one wing isn't above the other more than on the other side. The motor is simply glued onto the airplane. Yes, I know this is a mini Spark here. I forgot the footage for the biplane. But the principle is the same. Simply add glue to either side of the motor mount, then press it onto the fuselage. You want to be sure the motor mount aligns with its area. That is, that the motor has down thrust. If the motor is perfectly straight, the plane will always climb when throttled up. Where you mount the battery and the receiver is up to you. However, I'd recommend mounting the battery as close to the nose as possible. I mounted mine right behind the motor under the little curved piece in the nose by simply attaching a piece of Velcro. I mounted my FPV camera on the top wing and then mounted my receiver all the way in the back of the airplane's fuselage. And last, the most important thing about this airplane is to go out and have fun. It's so light, it has a hard time hurting itself, so go out, bash it, beat it up, and do the things you wouldn't normally do with a nice airplane. I'm IB Crazy, and keep 'em flying.